And welcome to Film Fights with Friends. I am Steven Kepfer, one of your co-hosts.
And I am Paul Veracci, your other co-host.
Yeah, for this amazing walk down some action filmmaking discussion.
We are going down like action filmmaking memory lane this episode.
Yeah, totally. We're going to be talking about FX, which came out in 1986, starring Brian Brown, Brian Dennehy,
the two Brians.
Yeah. And our guest, Tim Gallin, is in a pretty epic fight scene from that movie.
Let alone all the other epic fight scenes and movies he's done.
Yeah. In this movie, he plays an assassin who's trying to kill Brian Brown and Raleigh, the character's name Raleigh, and his girlfriend. Successfully kills the girlfriend, and then it leads to a pretty amazing fight, especially for the time period, like 1986.
I would say that for 1986, the girlfriend getting shot by an assassin in the very early part of a movie, to me, that was like, wait, what just like this doesn't happen. Normally they save her from almost, but nope, dead.
Yeah, dead. Yeah, to someone you thought was going to be a main character throughout the whole movie, gone.
I remember that was one of the first times that I think that's happened to me, and I was like, no, she's not dead.
But I mean, Tim is a veteran of the business. Like his first job was the Gong Show. We didn't even talk about it. He sent me the clip. We'll drop it in the video.
Watching the Gong Show.
Yeah, he was in the Gong Show doing a Elvis impersonation.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like, amazing, totally amazing. He's been in the business starting in the 70s all the way till now, still working.
He's working on Only Murders.
Yeah, Only Murders in the Building. He's Steve Martin's double. He's been doubling Steve Martin for like 20 years.
What a career we could all only hope for.
Oh wait, Tom Hanks in Splash. Come on, classic, legendary movies. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he gives some good stories.
Yes, he does.
Some really good stories.
And great insight.
Yeah.
Phenomenal insight on the industry, where it was, where it is. Really good stuff.
Yep. And he truly is, for those of us in the New York stunt community, he's one of those guys that is very free with giving advice and you know, pointing you in directions and just so helpful. You know, like I think a lot of times there's a rep that like, you know, the old crotchety stunt guy rep, but he is not that guy. And we talk a lot about Jerry Hewitt, you know, I mean, like cut from the same cloth, very loving, very caring, very much wanting to help people succeed, you know? So I love about Tim.
He wants you to be the best you can be.
Yeah, totally. And we talked a little bit about in the interview, but yeah, he was like one of my first hustles like 10 years ago on Doctor Strange, and just let me sit. He was stunt driving. And they were just, you know, sitting there locked up, curbed for like hours. And I just sat in the passenger seat picking his brain for like 2 hours.
That's awesome.
It was, he's such a good dude. So I'm so glad we got him on the show. What's going on with you, dude? Anything new?
Let's see. What do I got going on that's new? Nothing too crazy. I mean, a lot of daddy time lately. You know, the baby's, you know, 2 and change now. So, you know, that's pretty amazing watching them grow up and develop things. And then I saw this video the other day, and it like broke my heart because it showed this dad with this like shaken look on his face, and then the clip said, when your kid finally gets a word right and you realize you're never going to hear them say it wrong again.
Oh,
like,
wow.
Because like she says noodles instead of noodles without the S.
Yep.
And my wife and I both were just like, oh.
Yeah, it's like the kids who say biscotti.
Right. And then all of a sudden they say spaghetti, and you're like, I'm never going to hear biscotti.
Oh, that's crazy. So
that's kind of like.
So basically you're going to have to, for the rest of your life, you're going to have to say noodles.
I'm going to say noodles.
So she never learns to say it the right way. Dude, I don't have too much going on.
Wouldn't that be funny to like in like 15 years if I told my therapist that and they'd just be like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Like you got to let shit go, bro.
Make some noodles. What are you doing today? I'm going to have some noodles.
Some noodles.
Yeah, totally, man. On my end, not much going on, dude. Same old coaching, you know. We had the guys did some tournaments and they did pretty well. Brought home some medals.
Nice.
You know, and I lost a job, you know, a stunt coordinating a student film job, and we talk about this a lot.
Did you lose it or did you turn it down?
Well, I lost it. I didn't turn it down. I lost it because they didn't hire me because of what I was requiring to do the job. So
I mean, I'm not saying did you turn it down? No, but I think that you put your foot down and.
Well, basically,
I feel like you knew what the outcome was going to be when you said this happens a lot. That's what I kind of say when I mean you turn.
We've talked about it a lot, right? About set safety and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
And so, as you know, I always require the set medic.
Always.
And this was for a fight scene on a thesis film here at a school in the city, and not a big fight scene, but
right,
for a student film, big enough. And I gave a reasonable rate. But I also required a medic, and so for those listening, like when you read a script and there's a fight scene in it, a lot of whether or not you're actually going to need someone is how do you plan on shooting it? Are you going to actually see the fight, or are you going to imply that a fight's happening? And so a lot of the decision about casting a stunt performer or a coordinator or whatever depends on how it's intended to be shot, right? So it was told to me they were gonna shoot it all with cheats and XYZ, and they didn't need me. And I was like, okay, that's cool. But later on, I found out that they hired someone who underpriced me, and no medic, of course,
right? And just kind of let them wing it because that's what they think it.
Yeah.
That's how they think it is.
But how I found out was because the producer of the student film contacted me after about trying to rent gear that the coordinator that they hired didn't have.
Right. Yes.
And then I was like,
the gear they needed to rent is gear you don't rent. Like,
it's stuff that any stunt performer or coordinator should have. Yeah. It wasn't like, we're not talking about renting like cranes.
Like you're talking about renting knee pads for people.
Knee pads, elbow pads, like you don't basic things.
No, you have your own.
I was like, people don't rent that stuff.
Yeah.
That's just owned, Yeah. So, and we've talked about it a lot with people who coordinate big movies and stuff that, the underbidding and stuff like that. But in this case, I would rather not get the job.
No, you don't want to be. I don't want to be the coordinator on set when someone gets fucking hurt.
My conscience is clear,
especially when it's something when you're like, I fucking knew it. Yeah.
I mean, I don't wish injury or mishap on anyone.
No,
but you should prepare for it.
Always prepare for it.
Yeah.
You have to be. I mean,
I haven't. There's
sometimes even when you're starting out, you'll do something and you think you have all the angles covered, and then you shoot it, and then you're like, "Fuck."
Yeah.
What about that?
And here's the issue for me. Like, it's not about me losing a job. It wasn't like a ton of money, but here's the problem: is that the producer of this thesis film now taught the lesson to the student filmmaker that it's okay to cut corners. You know what I mean? That's the end result, is the continuation of the unsafe culture that we always talk about. So it's disappointing. There's not, I've coordinated, I think, student films for almost every film program in the city. Not a single one of them require student films to have medics. It's always me enforcing it. And then, them saying, okay, well, we'll get it we'll have the medic on a stunt day. And I'm like, you should have one on every day. Yeah. Things can happen on non-stunt days.
Well, it was like when we were talking about, when the guy was going to lean off the building.
Yeah.
And then we had everything all set up to keep him safe. And then it was, but what if?
Yeah. You have to.
What do we have in place if everything that we just did fails and now he's hanging off the side of the building?
Yep.
Where's your safety for that?
Yeah.
Where's your like your next step safety after you do your safety when that fails?
Yep.
So, you have to think of all those things. And it's one of the things that also Tim brought up about being more free when you're not the coordinator and you're the performer.
Yeah.
Because you don't have that, you have the
look, every
you
person.
You want to make sure you're safe, but
of course,
it's not your responsibility for everyone.
Yeah, and you'll see the people listening to the show will see when we asked Tim about being a coordinator versus being a performer.
Yes.
And talking about the level of responsibility of the coordinator and in regards to safety. Performers have we all have responsibility when it comes to safety. We're all part of keeping a set safe. But there is the person who plans for mitigating risk. Like the performer isn't there doing the planning. You come in trusting the person that hired you did the planning.
Yeah. And speaking of that, I just, we do have a potentially really cool thing coming up. If we can iron out all the details. And, I think it's going to happen. I think we can say we're going to interview the director of a documentary called Safe Sets. It's about this very topic. The director will be on the show later this season. And we are working out dates with them to do a live event where we screen the documentary here in New York. And hopefully we can bring in our Patreon members and a few other people to come and check it out with us.
It's a great documentary. It's on the festival circuit right now.
It's a mind-blowing documentary because all of and for those of you in the stunt community or in the film community who think about I don't want to spoil anything.
Yeah.
Who go into these instances, big instances that happened on movie sets, 3 or 4 of them they really dive into. They reveal things that I didn't know that make it so much fucking worse than what you hear. Yeah. It's a wonderful documentary.
Yeah, it's really good. It needs to be seen. And we've talked about it before. Like if there's going to be a change in the culture, sometimes it has to come from outside the industry.
Well, they're the people, the outside of the industry are the people who run the industry, which is what's crazy about it. The money is not.
Oh yeah, but
you know what I mean? Like, I feel like the final of where it all comes from, it doesn't come from us.
No. And I'm not even talking about outside the industry as in the producers. Okay. I'm talking about outside the industry, like not even involved.
Oh.
Like the director of this film, Paul Heinzelman, is a doctor and a public health expert who by chance started taking some work on movies and saw massive red flags regarding safety and sort of made it a mission of his own to explore this. Right. So he's not someone it's from outside the industry looking in saying, what the hell's going on here? Yeah. So it's a really important, film. I think it could be, a catalyst. There is definitely something in the air in the industry, partly because, of the shrinking all the suffering that's going on, people losing work, but there is definitely something in the air regarding safety, increasing safety. And, Yeah.
And speaking of screenings and everything, if you guys want to catch a bunch of screenings coming up in October,
yes,
we have our own little film festival coming up.
Well, it's not ours, but we sponsor it.
Sorry. Yeah, it's true. It's not ours.
Maybe we'll have our own one day.
Maybe.
That is the plan. But
the art of filmmaking.
Art of movie making.
Art of movie making film festival.
Yes.
The art of filmmaking movie festival.
Art
what I was about to say.
Of festivals for making movies. But it's the art of movie making film festival.
Yes. Where they celebrate everyone else that they don't celebrate in the Oscars.
Or at least they don't celebrate them on the televised part.
Right.
But it's all the crafts people, it's all the artisans, it's the set decorators, the set builders, the puppeteers, the visual effects people,
the stunt people,
the wardrobe people, and the stunt people. And the winner of the best stunt performance, hint, you should submit to this festival.
It's going to get to come and join us on the show.
Yeah. We're going to invite the winner of the best stunt performance onto the show.
And we're going to, we'll do a little dive in and break down the piece that you submitted.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, totally. So if you are in a scene that you would like to submit, or if you're in a production that you'd like to submit, or you're a director of a production of something you'd like to submit it. We'll put the Film Freeway in our show notes. Hopefully we'll see you at the festival. It's a great festival.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, totally. I love the networking is great. The films are great. The people that run it are great. Their heart's in the right place. Laura Thorne, awesome. Very, very good. She came to our last screening, our last live event. And if you were not a Patreon member, you missed it. So support us on Patreon.
But until then, we've got Tim Gallin.
Yes, we've got Tim Gallin. Before we go to Tim, we're just going to remind you to like, subscribe, comment, review,
follow, thumbs up.
Yes. Any way you can show us love, do it.
Please do.
And we will try to show you love back. If you comment, we'll give you a shout.
Right.
If you support us on Patreon, we'll give you a shout.
Mm-hmm.
Be part of the community that makes this show happen.
Come and hang out with us, guys. Interact with us.
Yeah, totally, man. All right. I think on that note, let's get to Tim Gallin.
All right, here we go.
Tim Gallin, so awesome to have you here, man.
Good to be here.
Sir. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's so great. For those listening, we had technical difficulties last season, and so we are finally back this season. Awesome. Episode number 2 of the season.
Yeah. Episode number 2.
Yeah.
With 2 of 2025.
That's it, man. So we're gonna obviously, I mean, your career is like long and storied and lots of stories, I'm sure, but we're gonna start.
I love how we know where we're gonna start, but at the same time, we don't know where we're gonna start because
we don't know where
his career is just insane.
Totally. But we're gonna start with FX because we asked you what fight you would like to talk about, and you suggested the assassin fight in FX, 1986's FX. Tell us why that was the immediate, like you were pretty immediate, like FX fight. Like, why did you choose that one?
Well, I think in today's hurry up world of streaming and where, they pre-visit, they get it all worked out so you can come in and just knock out the fight. Back in those days, you spent that pre-vis time and the actual filming time in 2 days to do an actual fight, where today they want you to come in and be done by lunch.
Right.
So that's why, in my mind, it's just something that we spent time on, and we did all the beats, and we covered it. I really hadn't covered a fight like that since. Mm-hmm. And it was a feature film rather than TV, which is much quicker.
Sure. So just a quick, when you say cover the fight, just for our audience who aren't, what do you mean?
So in other words, you're going to come in a couple of different directions. Mm-hmm. You're going to be at the point of view of myself, the assassin, or the point of view of Raleigh, who was the protagonist, and you'll so that means there's 2 angles to cover. So lighting wise, you're going to have to light it to make it look as best you can. So typically you shoot all in one way at a scene or a fight that you're doing, and then you turn it around and then you do it all over again. And you try to blend it and keep it seamless so that when they switch back and forth, it looks like it's the same fight, not a different fight.
Another question. I know that because now whenever we think of a previs or whenever we think of something like that, just pull your phone out. What did you guys shoot it with?
Oh, I'm sure massive.
No, I just so,
yeah.
I'm just trying to have people wrap their mind around what shooting a previs was then to shooting a previs now.
Well, it wasn't called previs, and it was really what it was called was rehearsal.
Yeah.
And you did it without a camera, and if it was something really important to do, you might have the DP show up and see it. I mean, I've had previses. We just did a previs for something on Only Murders, and it's as I said to the coordinator, I said, one time I had a previs on the following, and we shot it, and the director used every shot that I had in my previs, pretty much shot to shot. So it helps them a lot. But in this situation, you walk into the physical space. If you can have a rehearsal prior to anybody getting there, that's gold. But
for sure,
when you walk in, then you have to, the coordinator had in his mind an idea of what we were going to do, but it kind of finds its own way. Whether there's props put out or, in our case, there was typical things you would find in a kitchen, and that's what was used in the fight. So
the Victor Magnotta was the stunt coordinator, or
Victor Magnotta, and excuse me.
Yep. Hakuna Matata.
And Hakuna Matata. And Victor,
And Frank Ferrara too was credited.
Well, Frank took over for Vic. That was an interesting story where during the fight, and I don't know if it was only the fight or other parts of the movie. Zygmunt, I think was his name, was the DP, very well established DP at the time, European cat, and him and Vic had a falling out. They had a falling out about something. I forget if it was about our fight or whatever, but when you have a choice to get rid of the coordinator or the DP, usually the DP wins.
Yeah, for sure. So let's dial it back a little bit, because we dug up the original script for the movie. And the fight, I'm going to just read. It's a long fight, actually, so I'm not going to read the whole thing.
Yeah.
But it's legit 4 pages. And I'm going to go right to the section where you come in, or the assassin, the gunman, as it's called. A second later, the lock gives way. The door is flung wide, and gunman is 3 steps into the loft, crouched in a combat position, a high-powered rifle with silencer and a telescopic sight cradled in his gloved hands. Frantically scanning the room, he looks up too late as Raleigh brings a baseball bat down on his neck, knocking him out, which, by the way, is not the way it was shot, right?
Correct.
Raleigh stands over the unconscious gunman and raises the hat for the coup de grace. But when he hesitates, he tosses the bat aside, tosses the bat aside, and closes the door. Using the gunman's belt, he secures him to the wall heater. Then he goes to deal with his girlfriend who has been shot. And then we'll fast forward to the gunman slowly comes to. Raleigh searching through his pockets. He finds only a wallet with a little money in it. Places for an ID are completely empty. No credit cards, nothing. Raleigh tosses the wallet aside and sees the gunman looking at him. Now, this whole next page is completely cut out, right? So there's a whole dialogue scene between the gunman and Raleigh. Kind of like what Paul calls the James Bond moment, where Raleigh's trying to get him to talk, right? And so that whole scene is cut out. And then we get to the fight. The gunman's rifle is against a far wall. Raleigh sees it and starts for it, but the gunman picks up an umbrella stand and throws it at Raleigh, who has to duck. The gunman has time to limp because he's injured in the leg, right? Limp between the gun and Raleigh, moving for the kill. Raleigh stumbles to his feet and starts backing up. He's faster than the gunman, but his fear paralyzes him. The gunman enjoying the certain kill, uses a karate chop, which deadens Raleigh's left side. Raleigh stumbles back while the gunman limps forward. As Raleigh lurches back, he places whatever he can find in the gunman's path, a chair, a table, whatever, but the gunman only smiles at these petty obstacles and pushes them easily aside. He smiles at Raleigh, pleased his certain kill is becoming more interesting. Finally, Raleigh is up to the kitchen counter. Now, this part is in the fight, the kitchen counter. Raleigh's up to the kitchen counter, his back literally against the wall. Raleigh watches the gunman approach, that sickening smile still on his lips, his hands preparing for the death blow. Raleigh desperately grabs blindly behind him, overturning food canisters until his hand settles on something hard and heavy, an iron. And Raleigh doesn't even have time to see what he's got. He just grabs the iron, swings at the gunman's head. The iron crashes against something and tumbles from Raleigh's grasp. Raleigh feels uneasy feels uselessly about in helpless terror for some other weapon as he waits for his own death. But then there is silence. Raleigh looks and sees the gunman lying on the floor, the iron beside him. Raleigh goes to the gunman and sees a red gouge running across his forehead where the iron crushed his skull. And then there's still more, actually, dialogue and stuff like that. But it's a long scene. Right? Yeah. And so when you guys started the scene, and by the way, for the listeners, again, the fight is linked in the show notes. So if you haven't watched it yet, hit pause, watch it, and come back. And then you'll see how the final scene is different than what was originally written. Did you rehearse it with the dialogue, and was it cut on the day, or did you know ahead of time that wasn't going to happen?
No, the process was I got a phone call from Vic. He said, I want you to go meet a director. And I went to meet the director and went into his office. And I was pretty new to the game.
Robert Mandel is the director.
Robert Mandel. And Bob, I remember going into his office. He was behind the desk. And he just interviewed me. I think he wanted to see whether I could handle, whatever was written. It wasn't like a typical auditioning process. But so we talked a little while. I got into stunts in 1978. So this was, about 5 years later.
That's when I was born.
84. and well, I was a child stunt, I was a stunt runt. So that's why I'm so young. But, so we sat and we chatted, and then he goes, you remind me of an assassin. I'm going to use you. So I said, okay. And, I left, and the next time we walked in to the space was the day we were shooting, and we started going through the beats with Vic and what he wanted, and then Mandel got involved in the DP, and we mapped it out and shot it. And there was the stuff where I was entering. There was a long shot down the stairs. There was the shooting out the window when Diana got shot, and then the whole entry. So there was lots of pieces for the puzzle.
Yeah, we didn't even read that. There's the whole exactly the scene where you're outside and you kill
Diana Venora.
Brian Brown's girlfriend.
Yep.
Right. And then the way it's written in the script is he hears your footsteps coming up the stairs and all this kind of stuff. And then
you usually don't get that much when you're walking into a fight. It's usually he throws a right and knocks him out. That type of thing. So
it's exciting. Like were you chomping at the bit for this? Like this is going to be a big thing. I mean, for you, as you said, you were maybe only about 5 years into the business or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, every job was Christmas.
Right.
Back then it's kind of interesting. Back then is kind of how it is now for people, because I know it's very slow. And when I started, there was only about 36 people trying for stunt work at my estimate. And today it's, somewhere in the neighborhood 400, or, something of that nature. So competition is a lot greater now. In my time, there was also a lot less work. There wasn't what we had to wait for was a production to come in from LA that was action orientated. And you had to hope that the LA coordinator would at least throw some crumbs around town, because normally if it wasn't busy in LA, they'd have all LA people coming in and taking most of the work. Yeah.
Well, there's some legendary stunt people on this movie. I mean, if we're looking through the list, you got Pete Bucosi, who is now, those of us in the business know he's coordinating now also. And
Jerry Hewitt,
rest in peace. Buddy Joe Hooker, Henry Kinsey Sr., Charlie Pacerni, and his brother, right, Chuck?
That was his son.
Oh, son.
Yeah, that's Charlie Jr.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool. Mike Russo, Brett Smurs, Brian Smurs, Greg Smurs, and Ron Van Cleef. I was surprised to see that name in there.
Yeah, Ron Van Cleef,
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Pete Antico, Tommy Huff. I mean, the list goes on and on, like legends.
Oh, absolutely. Tommy Huff, I had dinner with him. They were shooting Vanilla Sky, and I couldn't get on this show, but I think Roy Farfel called me and said, hey, you want to have dinner with Tommy Huff and Henry Kinsey and Corey Eubanks? And I said, sure, I'd love to meet those guys. So we went to the Broome Street Cafe and had dinner. And so we're sitting there, and Tommy Huff and Corey Eubanks are telling stories. They said, you want to know how we met? I said, sure. And Corey Eubanks was doing Dukes of Hazzard, and he was doing a blind drive where he's down in the wheel well of the car listening to the radio and kind of driving it. And the coordinator would say, go right, down right, down left, and he's driving through a forest. So, and then he gave him like too quick a right or a left, and he ended up going into a tree. So, he got banged up because he couldn't really strap himself in down below. He was just on a grab strap. And so they wheel him out and take him to the hospital, and he's in the waiting area of the hospital. Like, they have the gurneys out in the hallway because it was busy. And there's another guy lying next to him. And it's guy says, hey, how you doing? He goes, yeah. He goes, I'm Corey Eubanks. He goes, I'm Tom Huff. He goes, and Tom had been injured on another movie. So he says, what do you do for a living? He goes, I'm a stuntman. He goes, really? He goes, so am I. He goes, I guess we're not very good, are we?
That's so funny.
But they were good, and they continued. So
yeah, of course. And did you ever consider moving to LA, or did you do time there, or did you just always stay in New York?
Yeah, I graduated in 1978 from college. So that was in May or June, whenever it was. And so I was on a plane pretty soon right after that out to LA. And I just used to start hustling to go to all the different studios, sneak in and try to find a production, try to meet a coordinator. The first thing I did was, I got on, I went down to Stunts Unlimited's office on Cahuenga Boulevard, and I walked in, and there was this beautiful blonde that used to work there for many years, platinum blonde, sitting behind the desk. So I walk in and I said, hi, I'm Tim Gallin. I'm here to join. And she laughed and went in the back and got this guy, Benny Moore, who was one of the members. And there was only, I think, 36 members of Stunts Unlimited at the time. So Benny came out and he took me into the conference room, and he gave me, some great advice. He said, come back in 5 years when you're in the union and you have some experience, and then we can talk to you. But right now, we're good. So I've been telling that story a lot lately. As you get older and you're reflecting back on your beginnings, like I'm doing right now.
Sure.
I've been telling that story. So I said, I've never thanked Benny for that, that first meeting. And so I finally found him and called him, and we spent an hour and a half on the phone talking, just so I could thank him for, taking the, 15, 20 minutes, whatever it was, of giving me the straight dope of when I went out there. And I never forgot that,
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, honestly, one of my first hustles was with you about 10 years ago, almost. It was on Doctor Strange.
Right.
Where you rented a pad from here.
I got a pad through. Yeah, I found you through Kimmy. Kimmy told me about you. And And then you were like, down.
Yeah, you were like, come down, hang out. And we sat in the car together talking. I don't know how, it seemed like forever, like 2 hours or something. But you gave me so much advice on that day that I have just passed on to other people.
He immediately came back and told me.
But it's just pretty awesome. You're known around here as one of the guys that will offer up advice very willingly and often, that everybody loves when they see your name on the call sheet. And dude, you're a legend.
I'm happy to do it. I'm happy when, I know some performers are shy. They feel like they're, bugging you if they're asking or calling you. But I pretty much try to be an open book. I also got recruited in, I used to vote on the elections every couple of years for people in the union in the politics end of it. And I really didn't know, you kind of read the blurbs. And I used to say to myself, I really don't know anything about these people, so I investigated a little bit, and what that did, that got me recruited. So I ended up spending 10 years on the National Board of AFTRA and on SAG. I've been on the SAG Stunt Committee since, I don't know, 30 years or more.
I was going to say, you're still on it.
Yeah, I'm still on it.
Yeah.
And so, but it was really just for information and knowledge. And the good thing was I was able to share that with people on set, because they would be concerned about what was coming up with the contract, or which way they, maybe should vote and things of that nature. And I could give them both sides of the story.
Sure.
And they can make a decision.
Yo, so I know Paul he looks like he's got a question. I can see it in his eyes.
I do. I have a question. So when you jumped over your hands.
Yes.
Steve and I rewound it and watched it over and over and over again. We couldn't figure it out. Were they really tied up?
Yeah, it's tied up.
That's
awesome.
That's so fucking hard to do.
So for those listening, right?
That's so hard to do. The thought of just thinking about it, I'm like, I would have spiked myself.
He had his hands were tied behind his back, and then he jumps
over his
legs over his hands
to put his hands on the front.
Yeah.
And we rewound it 5-6 times to see if we could see a break. To see, there's no way he's doing it.
Right.
That's crazy.
That's great. See, I won't be trolled. I won't be trolled on the internet.
So was FX? I mean, FX was at the time, it was a huge. I mean, I was a senior in high school.
I was
1986.
I think I was like 7.
Yeah, it was a huge movie
when the first one came out. So I actually have a connection to that, because that was one of the first. The sequel was one of the first more violent movies my dad took me to see as a kid, because it was FX.
Right.
So it was easier for him to explain blood, and like for me to watch something like that as it was in context of filming and actual effects that was going on. And then after I saw how much I loved the sequel when I was a kid,
right,
he showed me the first one.
Oh, okay.
And then I was like, whoa. Then I lost
for
it.
me, it was like, so because back then I knew I was interested in being in the film business, but I always wanted to be a special effects guy. And that all kind of started like with American Werewolf in London, right? I was like, I want to be able to do that kind of cool stuff.
Yep.
And then this movie comes out where the protagonist is an effects guy, and then he has to use that skill. It was just very cool, man. It was such a huge movie at the time.
I want you to know, Tim, that as a kid, I would be in the pool with my hands tied behind my back, and I would try and do it in the pool, and I still couldn't do it. Like, that's how much I love that movie. Like, when I would be in the pool, I'd be like, oh, and I would try and jump over. I still couldn't do it.
No. Well, I'll tell you, Paul, I can't do it anymore either. So, was that a leveling up for you, like career wise? Like, was that what happened after that? Well, I think what it is, with Vic and,
because you've been in some insane, you've been in pretty much you name a movie.
Everything I love, you have been in.
Oh, okay. Well,
every awesome 80s retro cult classic movie,
Highlander,
you can almost tick it off.
Bonfire of the Vanities, Men in Black, Conspiracy Theory, Super Troopers. I mean, you just name it. Crystal Skull, Birdman. You've been in so many greats.
As I say, I've been very blessed. Because
and Sleepers.
Sleepers.
Yeah.
Oh, Sleepers.
What a great movie.
Yeah.
And then the one with
he was
River Phoenix and Mark Wahlberg and Robert Duvall, right? The cop movie.
When
Mark Wahlberg was the cop and Joaquin, not River Phoenix. Joaquin Phoenix was his brother.
You mean Copland?
No. What is it? We have it on here?
I don't know. There was too many. He has his credits are too long to write everything on here.
Oh, We Own the Night.
Oh, We Own the Night.
Oh, We Own the Night. Yep.
We Own the Night, man. That scene had that movie had an amazing driving sequence.
Yes.
But
so after FX, was that how did that propel you a little bit, or?
Yeah, well, my entree into the business was through a former football coach of mine. The day I met Vic Magnotta I was on my first fire drill line in high school. So, it's the first week or two of high school, and I'm in an all-boys Catholic school. I own a prep in New Rochelle. And, they call fire, fire drill. So we go out, we get online, we're walking down the hall, and we stop. And, we're waiting to get outside. They have different people coming down from different ends. And some kid bumped into me. So I turned around, I shoved the kid back, trying to be a tough guy, as you're a freshman in high school. And the next thing I know, I'm being flipped over, Sambo style onto the ground. And this guy standing over me going, "You do that again, I'll kill you." It was Vic Magnotta.
Oh, wow.
And, so he ended up becoming my audiovisual teacher, my physical education coach, and my JV football coach. And Vic was what I learned later in life, and it was kind of interesting how our lives intersected. But when he I graduated from high school in '74 and went out to Long Island to college, and in my mind, I was like, I never want to see Vic again, because, there was one time we were having football practice, and me and another kid wised off, and he took us outside and I had hair at the time, and he had my crop of my hair in his hands, and this other guy, Jared, he's banging our heads against a metal door.
Oh my God.
And it was, when corporal punishment was allowed in school. So needless to say, I'm gone from that school. Could care if I, some people I'll miss, but a lot of people I could care if I ever see them. Vic was one of them. And then 2 years later, I'm a sophomore in CW Post, and I'm at the, Taxi Driver had come out. So I went to the theater to watch Taxi Driver, and I'm sitting there, and bam, there's Vic, big as life on the screen. And what I didn't realize until later was Vic was a recon Marine. He used to do behind the scenes, behind cover scouting for the Marines, looking to where, behind enemy lines to bomb them. This was all along the Burma Trail. And he survived. He came back. So on the GI Bill, they give you free education. He picks NYU Film School. This is in the 60s. And he goes there, and who does he befriend but another Italian boy who was thinking about going into the Jesuits, Martin Scorsese.
Oh, wow.
And he does all of Scorsese's student films, and, works in concert with him, does his final film. Vic is in Scorsese's first film, which is called Can You Hear Me Knocking? And then they graduated NYU, and Vic came to work at my high school, and Scorsese went to raise the money for Mean Streets. And then they came back around at Taxi Driver, and he kind of put Vic in the position to become a stunt coordinator in New York City.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So, yeah, I haven't met Marty yet. I want to thank him, for being, part of the reason why I got in,
Yeah. Well, it is such a small community, right? It's like, it's really just who knows who knows who knows who.
Well, there's the saying that I now like, which is, it's not who knows you, it's who knows you when you're not in the room.
True.
And so I know you've coordinated a bunch too. And you mentioned The Following earlier. You were the stunt coordinator on The Following, the TV show.
Yes.
And did you
another culty show?
Oh, I know.
I was like, we were just interviewed Riley Stearns, and we were talking about that stuff. So it's kind of random that we just hit another cult show.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so the leap from performer to coordinator, was that something you wanted, or kind of what are your feelings about that? Or do you have a preference of which you prefer to do, or
perform?
Yeah.
Yeah. I much prefer performing. I've really enjoyed, and as I've said to certain other people, I said the thing for stunts with me was when you can do something and it's seamless and you actually fool people, where they, like you guys trying to find that separation 5 times going back, and where you're trying to see where does it become, in that fight with Raleigh and Jerry Hewitt is his double. And, I can tell, but no one's ever said to me, oh, that guy's different, because Jerry was just so good at it. And
I actually had no idea. I just assumed it was Brian Brown the whole time. The way it was shot, it was great.
Mm-hmm.
No, I took Jerry into the wall, and then I also took him down by the flame. And then Brian, we tried to put it in as much as we could. But he was he's an Aussie, and and he was ready to go. One little side note that I wanted to share with you on that was one of the things that I always remember about FX was that I forget if it was the first day or the second day, but we were on Spring Street or Prince Street. We were in this loft that an artist had that they had rented, and so it was a beautiful area of the city. And there was a Dean and DeLuca downstairs from where we were fighting. So I'm all messed up. The blood and everything is on me, and we were taking a break, and it was hot up there. So I went downstairs and I sat in the street, and I was leaning against a car, all bloodied up. People are walking by looking at me. But who comes walking out of the Dean and DeLuca but Fred Gwynn and his wife?
Oh, really?
Wow.
Herman Munster.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
And Herman comes walking up to me. He goes, "What do we have here?"
Oh my God.
And I got to spend 5 minutes with him chatting,
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, that was that was one of the highlights.
Oh, I'll bet. I love those moments.
Yeah.
Those happy accidents.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally. That's so cool. I didn't realize Jerry was his double. That's awesome.
No, Jerry, yeah. That was the first big thing I did, I think, with Jerry, because, he had done Warriors and I was on Wanderers. I was actually in California trying to break in when Warriors was shot. In other words, I might have been on that, and then when I came back, I came back and I had called Vic, and he said, "I have nothing. Call me when you come back to New York." And he was doing this movie Wanderers, and he said, "Come on down to Central Park, help me teach these actors how to play football." So I went down pro bono, and we threw the ball around, and I taught him how to block and all this other stuff. And he came up to me at the end of the week or two, whatever I was down there. He says, "If you shave your head, I'll get you in the union." I said, "Shave away." And so I went over, and there was this guy, Joe Motto, and Alan Weisinger, and they were the makeup and hair for the Wanderers. Great guys. And so I go in to get shaved, and I'm sitting there, and Karen Allen was in the movie, and she was in the office at the time, and she goes, "Oh, can I watch you shave his head?" And they said, "Sure, Karen." And they plopped her down right in front of me as I'm getting my head shaved. And I was like, oh my God. She was so beautiful, man. And,
wow.
It was an interesting moment.
You mentioned that it feels like the industry, because of the shrinking, or whatever you want to call it, constriction, or whatever term you want to describe what we're going through right now, feels like it did back then, with like not a lot of demand, right? More supply than demand. I mean, what are your thoughts on what's going on right now in the business, as somebody with the perspective of having been through ups and downs for so long?
Well, fortunately or unfortunately, it's all about money. Back in those days, again, the industry, which actually started in New Jersey, where I'm sitting, and moved west, was because the Nickelodeon owners didn't want to pay for the licensing and rentals and stuff like that. So they created Hollywood, and it was that was a very smart thing to do, and it grew. That's why they kept it all where it was they controlled it. They controlled the rent, the rentals and everything. Mm-hmm. So it's all about money. Since then, we've gone into the era of luring business wherever you can. Canada was successful in doing it, especially when the dollar was so far off, and they could just offer. And then infrastructure got built up there, which created it. You also have the unions were a part of it. In 1990, the studios went to the Teamsters and said, "We'd like you to do this, this, and this." And the Teamsters said, sorry. So the studio said, okay. And then they directed all of their development people were not shooting in New York anymore. And so for 2 years, we were dry, and to the point where people had to relocate, sell their houses and move if they wanted to stay in the business. Mm-hmm. There's always going to be different factors that are working on it. I saw it climb from when it came back in 1992. There was a climb from there till 1998 that was kind of unprecedented. And, I realized that was when I made a decision in 1995 to go full time into stunts and the business. Prior to then, I was working 2 jobs. I was doing stunts and I was also doing construction.
And what was the cause of this ascent of production? It's kind of like, right, like 10 years ago with streaming and Marvel, like New York blew up.
Yeah, it's a tax incentives. Mm. And it was, there's always states that are going to try to lure business in through tax incentives, through different deals that you can make, whether it's through the electricity or the rent or
sure.
whatever.
Well, I remember a few years ago they took away the tax incentives in New York, and then nobody was really shooting here, and everything was shooting in Jersey, and like literally even coming to the city to shoot a scene was a big deal.
Yeah.
Like right after COVID, right around that time, like coming in and shooting in the city whenever they needed to shoot, everyone was just like, fuck.
Well, we got incentives
because it's just nothing but money. Yeah. No, now we do. Yeah.
So that
you see it in California now. They're trying to raise the incentive there. They're doing fairly poorly for what they used to have. They're supposedly feeling it from what I read and hear. And it's always going to be a push and pull to try to bring those dollars to your state. And, so it'll always be a struggle.
So that mid to late 90s was a big boom. And then you decided, I'm going to make a go at it.
Yeah, big boom. It was, I still am married, and, I had 3 young daughters. My family owns what's known as what I believe is the oldest general construction company in the United States that's still family owned. It's called John Gallin and Son, that my great grandfather started in Manhattan in 1886.
Oh, wow.
So my cousins run it now. One of my daughters is there. So that's, 5th generation of the family still building things in New York City. So that was, it was not an easy decision to leave that and kind of throw it to the wind of this business that we know so well.
So to bring it back, we went off on a big tangent, but you prefer performing to coordinating.
I do. Performing is just, it's just freer. When you're a coordinator, you have a responsibility. You're responsible for their number 1, number 2 on the call sheet, and everyone else. Although the first AD is ultimately responsible for safety on set, I think if a coordinator is on set, they're the second person that's responsible, because that's really what their eyes are out there looking at. And so you have to really think about crew, whether the wind's blowing. I know, a gaffer will get involved if the wind's blowing too much. They're not going to raise the cranes to put the lights on. And so you're going to have to alter yourself that way. The IATSE and other crew unions have become very aware of safety, with what happened with Sarah down in Georgia and Rust and all those types of things. So, but you're, as a coordinator, you have a lot of responsibility on your shoulders.
You got to think of all the woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Absolutely.
All the what ifs, every single in and out. It's, got to be a relaxing freedom to not have to do that.
Yes.
Once you've been doing it, to been like, oh God, this is so much.
No,
easier.
it's huge. You try to, express that to young performers coming up where they go, oh, this guy was kind of, short with me. Or I said, well, you got to understand what's going on in the coordinator's mind.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't have time to hold your hand.
Absolutely. And, I don't want to be nasty to somebody, but you have to really pick and choose when you're going to hustle a coordinator, understand, they may be going through, a lot of turmoil that you're completely unaware of. So, that's the main reason why I would prefer to perform.
Aside from FX, what's another standout for you that, not necessarily a fight, but just any particular production that you've been involved in?
Oh, there's so many. I mean, doubling Tom Hanks on Splash was a lot of fun.
What a great movie. Another movie I used to watch with my dad all the time when I was a kid.
Yeah, and that was just wasn't supposed to be me. It was supposed to be Billy and Agnes. But because he was flipping a car on the day we had to be on set for Splash, we had gone down together down to Times Square to meet Ron Howard. We were on this other show. It was an English show. It was a movie that came over from England. I'm trying to think of the name of it. But it was an armored car heist. So we had a lot of car chases, and Billy and Agnes, of course, was, driving the main car. And I had been driving with Jerry. I had been a passenger in Jerry's car with Billy, and we had done some banging, in this wooded area up in Rockland County. And then we actually, where the quarry was that we did the armored car heist is now, a housing project.
Mm-hmm.
They had filled in the quarry. But anyway, they sent me and Billy down, and they had picked Billy to be Tom Hanks's double. And we went back to Rockland to work on this film. And like the next week, they called and they said, we need the Tom Hanks double. So Vic wasn't going to give up Billy for this, car turnover. He goes, Timmy, you go down. So I go down and I show up and the same producer that picked Billy was standing there, and he goes, oh, you're perfect. You're perfect. And so anyway, I'm standing on like 61st Street. The first scene I did in Splash was the start of the car chase as we're going through Columbus Circle. And, the campers were all uptown on Broadway or on 61st Street. And there was a holding area down at 59th Street or something. So the wardrobe person came over and gave me my wardrobe and said, oh, the holding's down and so-and-so. And I said, and in my mind, I'm going, I'm not walking all the way over there. So the campers are all there, and I see my character's name that I'm doubling on the door. So I walk into the camper and I start getting changed, and I'm in my underwear, and Tom Hanks walks in. And this is how I met Tom. I go, hey, how you doing? I'm Tim. I'm your stunt double. He goes, hey, how are you? He goes, make yourself at home. we got stuff in the refrigerator. You want to watch TV?
Oh my God, that's so funny.
So, that's That's how we did it back in the day.
And you're on Only Murders. You mentioned that earlier. You're doubling Steve Martin?
Yeah.
Yeah. And have you doubled him in the past?
I've
Pink
been,
Panther, right?
Pink Panther. So it's 20 years now that I've been doubling him.
Wow.
He's had other doubles and other productions, but I've done 4. I did both Pink Panthers. I did a 30 Rock, and now we just started the season 5 of Only Murders.
Only Murders is great because, we were talking about doing an episode of stunts on, like the meta of stunts in productions.
Yep.
Like Fall Guy or whatever. But I love the whole arc of
it was so good
of the stunt community in Only Murders in the building,
and the fact that they actually had the New York stunt community in it.
Yeah. Like it was great. Like the stunt bar and the stunt. It's like how
Concussions.
much? Yeah. Concussions. It's a great name for a bar too.
Right.
Not that we advocate getting concussions.
No. It's a literary thing. That's all. But no, Murders. John Hoffman, who's the creator, with Steve, I've told him I just love the whole backstory of Sass and with Jane Lynch's character being his stunt double, and most productions start from the top and the vibe that comes down. And being on that set is just is a great set to be on and to work with. All good people, good crew.
It's a phenomenal show. It's such a great show.
So, with all of have you? I guess what's the best? What was your most kind of like after you got done doing a stunt? What was your biggest like oh shit moment that you got through, and then afterwards you realized that it was fucking bad? Did you ever have one of those where you're just like, oh shit, and then you turn around and you're like, oh shit, oh, I'm good?
Well, I'll say this: I was still working in construction, so and that was kind of funny. Where, like when I did, I was on a movie with Michael J. Fox, where I was the concierge. It was called, I think, For Love or Money. It was called The Concierge, and it ended up For Love or Money. And I was Elliot, the limo driver, and it was supposed to be Chuck Jeffries, and Chuck couldn't do it, so Jerry called me, and I was in a suit and tie down in Lower Manhattan at my construction job. He goes, "Can you go up to the Sherry Netherland Hotel?" I said, "Yeah." So I got on the subway and I went up, and I get off the subway and I walk up, and Barry Sonnenfeld is there with this producer, and Graham, I think it was Graham was his name, and Graham Place or something. And he auditions me right there on the corner of 59th Street and 5th Avenue. He goes, "Yeah, you'll be fine," and and then I got on the subway and went back to work, and it was wonderful. So, but you were talking about, what was the other?
Like a near miss, or
like you ever have like a near miss that you got through it completely like unscathed, and then you go back and you're like, oh,
well,
how did I not?
I thought of, so the same situation where I was working in construction one day, and I get a call. "Hey, this is the David Letterman show, the Late Show. Can you, we want you to do a high fall." And I said, "Oh, okay." They go, "Okay, well, show up tonight at." So I had never done a high fall. I had done some stuff off of quarries and, high dive and stuff like that. But so I went up to the Letterman show, and it was a Christmas thing where they wanted me dressed as Santa Claus and to jump out of the window. They were throwing like ornaments, and they threw a fruit cake out. Everything broke except the fruit cake. The plate and everything.
Yeah, he used to have that gag where they would drop stuff off the building and slow-mo. Right. Yeah, it would smash slow-mo.
Yeah, Norman did a 90-foot on fire jump off of there one time. So anyway, they brought me up, and they brought me up to the ninth floor or whatever, and they said, "Oh, you want to do a high fall?" And I had never done one. I said, "I'm not doing one from this height." So we started going down the stairs, and I ended up doing it which is their fifth floor. It's about 60 foot because they have a mezzanine. So
that's so high.
Yeah,
that's still so high.
It's very high.
I mean, when I was a kid, there was a 75-foot cliff. We had a bunch of different cliffs in Colorado, and I was doing the 40-foot, and I went up to the 75-foot. And I'm sorry, I pussed out. Mm-hmm. I was like, no fucking way.
Right? No,
it's high.
It's high, and as you know, the perspective of being on the ground and looking up, and then the other perspective is much different.
Oh yeah.
So what I did was I agreed to do that height, and then I called Jerry, of course, and I wanted the best person to be with me while I'm doing it for advice. So Jerry came in with Don Hewitt. Mike Russo was on the bag. It ends up being from the fifth floor, 60 foot. And I did it. And so I'd never done anything from that height. So getting into the bag and jumping up, that's the way I felt afterwards. It was like, wow, this really could have gone wrong.
Wow.
Because the other time when I was with Jerry, I had gone in and auditioned for New Jack City, the opening of that where they have a white kid hanging off of the 59th Street Bridge, and they owed him money. So I went in and Mary Von Peebles, and I auditioned. Is that the
See Ya and I Wouldn't Want to Be You scene?
What's that?
Is that the See Ya and I Wouldn't Want to Be You scene when he drops him?
Yeah, exactly. And so I read for it. I got the part, and then I went up to Jerry's. And he had only a ladder at the time to do high falls. He climbed, like the circus ladder that's suspended. And he wanted to build a scaffold. So we built a pipe scaffold all day, 65 feet. And it was dark by the time we finished. So I couldn't jump. And so it got to the point where I never got any rehearsal time. I called him. I said, Jerry, I feel uncomfortable because initially they were talking 80 feet upside down on a quick release, and they drop you on the queen side. And Greg Smurs ended up doing it, and Greg had some experience. And Greg told me he was nervous because he didn't know whether to open up or to tuck. And he figured it out, and you just open up and it just takes you right around. And it ended up being 70 feet, I think. So I'm happy I'm happy I turned that down. I've turned other things down because I didn't know who I couldn't get my rigger on it to do it for me for a descender. And you make decisions, and for me they worked out.
I mean, we've talked about that, like when to say no, and especially with younger or newer performers, the pressure is to not say no.
Well, I bring up the time I was on the Bollywood film,
right?
And I should have said no, and I didn't, because I put myself in the position of they're going to ask someone who says yes, and that person's going to fucking get hurt.
Yeah.
So I was like, it might as well be me just forcing them to do it safely, and then I'll cover my own ass. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of how I did it. And actually, my oh shit moment was on that. Was I did the first back fall. It was from like 14 or 15 feet, nothing crazy, right. And then I immediately knew that from where the camera was that my hand was too low and you could see my face, and I was doubling somebody. So right. I immediately knew we were going to have to shoot it again, and I was going to have to fall and make sure my face was, behind my arm. So right. I immediately went back up because I was like, yeah, I know, we'll do it again. And I go back up and I strap myself in as I climb over the ledge. And then I thought, and I was like, something doesn't feel right. And then I'm like, guys, move the mats off the boxes. And they moved the mats off the boxes, and there was a huge hole in the boxes because the boxes hadn't been reset where I hit them last time. And I'm like, fucking reset the boxes.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And if I had gone without double checking that, I would have fallen right into that hole. Yeah. And my head would have went right through to the mat, to the pavement.
Was there a point, Tim, where you learned that lesson to feel free to say no?
I think it all depends upon who you are and the people you come in with. So, And I think that, there's going to be an attitude of cowboy up and, don't keep your mouth shut. And I think it has changed, but I think that other element is still out there too.
Mm-hmm, for sure. So most recently, I'm wearing the Irish Mike shirt.
Oh, that's right. You were the ref.
That's right.
I saw that.
Yeah. So we were happily surprised when we went to see the screening of Day of the Fight that you were in it. You were in it as the referee. How was that? We loved that movie.
I thought it was a great movie.
We loved that movie, and we loved that fight scene too.
Yeah, it was something that was, you never know where these things are going to come from. And I got a call from Bobby Beckles, and I had done a refereeing job for him on Lights Out. And
a great show.
I love that show.
Yeah, it was the championship fight between Holt and Billy Brown. And it was a lot of fun. Stacy Keach and, all the people that were there. I think Mark Breland was involved, and a lot of good people from the industry and from boxing. And then when I got there, Bobby wasn't there. Johnny C was the coordinator, but I guess I was sort of separate. He was more dealing with the fighters, and I just had to look like I knew what I was doing and and not get in the way of the camera. So it was really just about moving with the fighters and allowing the camera to see the fighters is really what it comes down to. And so it worked out really well. And I worked with Ron Perlman, great guy. Pitt is very intense. He's about getting this character and the work done. And and then interestingly, there were some MMA guys that were involved in the fight, and they were good guys and did a nice job.
Yeah,
I loved the Ron Perlman coach character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, yeah, that whole scene at the Garden was one of them. Again, I think we both said it. It's just some of the most accurate, at least coaching, at least the way we coach.
Well,
which is not screaming and yelling at your fighter and smacking him in the face, and you know what I mean. It's just all about.
Well, we mentioned
making him breathe, keeping him calm.
At the Q&A to Jack Houston, we asked him about that, about writing that scene, because we've coached people in the Garden before, and it's like it was so accurate to what it feels like, from that perspective. It was really a really good job. It's really cool.
No, I fought in the Golden Gloves back in 1977, and one of the fights was in the Felt Forum, so. You get that, it's just a unique feel to be in a place where a lot of fighters fought. And my guy, the guy that was my coach, was this guy, Bob Crimmins. And Bob was just, he was, he looked like Mick from Rocky. He's that type of guy. And his story should be written, because he was just one of these guys who was in World War II, was on a rescue boat. He came back, became a tax guy in Pelham, but he always coached boxing. And he told me a story once where he was out to dinner with his first wife had died. He had I think 3 daughters. One was, developmentally disabled. So he was very, involved in getting the rights for them started and implemented in Westchester. He was also a painter that could paint ambidextrously. He could paint with both hands at the same time. And he used to make a lot of the canvases for the big fights, like Budweiser and Iveco and all these different things. But he had a carriage house in Pelham behind his house where he had this ring, and he had a number of Golden Gloves champions, and it was just it was just wonderful to have a guy like that in your corner, his comment to me was always, you got a face only a mother could love, But the greatest part about Crummy Crimmins was when he was a young man in the 20s, he pitched to Babe Ruth. He was a pitcher on the Boston Red Sox.
Oh, wow.
And he got Babe to ground out to first. And so he used to have a pen. He used to say, "My name is Bob Crimmins. I got Babe Ruth to ground out. My autograph is worth 15 cents."
So what do you got coming up? Anything in the works, Tim?
I just worked. Murder's just started for their 5th season, so we'll see what happens. If they write stuff in for Steve, I'll be up for it. I'm going to see my spinal surgeon this Tuesday, so
good luck with that.
That's a stunt you're not getting paid for. You're actually paying for that one.
As you know, that's a part of the game that we all deal with. So that's something that I had my neck fused back in 2013. So, but he had to leave some of it so that I would still have the ability to turn it. So I'm thankful for that, but I'd like to get it all squared away.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, man, it's been great. It's been great chatting with you, man. Could go on forever.
I mean, I could. There are so many other movies. I'm like, we didn't talk about them all.
Yeah,
you've been in so many, like Highlander.
Yeah, Highlander. I was actually I'm quoted in the book that came out about it.
Oh yeah,
the guy that wrote the book tracked me down from England, and what I didn't realize, it was funny, for years I didn't realize, I thought I was working for Vic. Well, I was working for Vic Magnotta, but I was actually working for Vic Armstrong, because Vic Armstrong was the second unit director on that.
Oh wow!
And Vic Armstrong's also in the book, but I had not realized how huge Highlander was. I mean, it's just, they've had so many remakes, and their fans go deep. They really go, and so it's very cool. I'd love to run into Brown. What's his name?
I ran into Clancy Brown on Punisher. Clancy. It's not often where I stop in my tracks and I'm just like, and he's so nice and such a cool guy. It made it even worse.
Oh
yeah.
I would like to see him just to say, "Hey, I was with you back in the day," and
he was in this great movie. If you haven't seen it, before we go, you've got to see it, called Hellbenders. Okay. This movie is beyond hysterical, and it's about these 4 priests, and they're what's called hellbound saints, and they live a life of sin in case they come across someone possessed, so they can take the demon inside of them and go straight to hell. It is and Clancy Brown is their leader.
Oh wow.
And he makes sure they all sin. It is fucking hilarious.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's very cool. I never even heard of that movie.
Oh, Hellbenders, dude. It's one of my favorites. I own it. So good. And it's with Clancy Brown, Clifton Collins Jr., Dan Fogler, and I forget who the girl is that plays the other lead, but an amazing, funny cast.
Cool.
And the effects, the fights, the core, everything is top notch.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Nice.
Yeah, man. So thank you so much for coming on, Tim. I'm glad we actually made it work this time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, totally, man.
And thank you. I hope you guys keep working. And
us too.
We hope so too. No, I wasn't joking, man. Every time we've been on set a few times together, and every time I see your name on the call sheet, I get excited.
Well, good. Well, hopefully it'll happen one of these days, and
hopefully we'll get to work together one day.
Yeah, that would be nice. Absolutely.
All right. This is great. Right. Thanks again, man.
Thanks so much, Tim.
Continued success with this as well, fellas.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Take care.
All right.
Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Film Fights with Friends is produced by Stephen Kepfer, Paul Veracci, Press Record Studios, and Breakball Studios. This episode was engineered by Matthew Kaplowitz. This show is powered by our supporters at Patreon and is a registered trademark of Film Fights with Friends, LLC. Original theme by Aru Luster.